Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's Career Chat. I'm Krista Harmon. I'm from the Kent Intermediate School District. I'm one of the career readiness consultants. And today I welcome Nathan McDonald. He's a phlebotomist. And we are looking forward to digging in to learn more about this career and help young people understand the steps to get there. So welcome, Nathan.
Good to be here. Thank you for having me.
So I'd love to get us started by taking you back to the ages of some of the young people on the call on the Zoom today. When you were in high school, Nate, did you think you'd be a phlebotomist? Tell us about those early thoughts and kind of that progression of to get to where you are today.
So I grew up in Rockford here in Kent County. And I knew by the time I got to high school, I knew that I wanted to go into healthcare. At the time I was thinking I wanted to be a doctor because that's what everybody thinks about. And to be honest, I never thought twice about the laboratory at the hospital. And I really never thought twice about having the job of drawing people's blood, which in case you don't know, phlebotomy, a phlebotomist is the one who draws your blood when you come into the lab, or in my case, when you're admitted to the hospital. I go around and draw your blood because your blood tells us a lot about your health and about how you're doing, and about how we can treat you and get you better. So I knew I wanted to go into healthcare, and I graduated there, and I went to college and I got a degree in biology, and then I decided I didn't want to go to medical school. I needed a break from school, and I got a job working at a nonprofit organization that helps with human trafficking, and I did that for about 5 years. And the whole time I kind of knew I need to end up in healthcare. And I was talking to a friend of mine who also went to Rockford, and I didn't know what I wanted to do in healthcare. And she was a phlebotomist and said, you really need to be an inpatient phlebotomist, a phlebotomist that's in the hospital. And I was like, why would I want to do that? Like, going to draw people's blood wasn't necessarily appealing to me. And she said, well, there's not a part of the hospital that you don't go. If there's a patient in a part of the hospital, you go there. I am in the adult units where we have adults with everything from cancer to heart problems to you name it, to infections. I go into the emergency room. I am called to every trauma that comes in. If you get in a really bad car accident and need emergency care, I'll be there to draw your blood because they need those lab results really quickly to know how they're going to treat you. I go to the Children's Hospital. It's actually my favorite place to work. I go into surgeries. I mean, you name it, I go there, and I'm rubbing shoulders with respiratory therapists, with physical therapists, with nurse techs, with surgical techs, with nurses, with physician's assistants, nurse practitioners, doctors, you name it, I'm working with them. So for somebody who is looking to see where he wanted to work in healthcare, this was a great option. And what I learned is I really love phlebotomy. And now I've been a phlebotomist for 5 years. And I never really would have thought that I loved it, but I got in here, and sure, the first couple weeks before I really knew how to use a needle and how to take my finger and feel for people's veins that you can't see, that was a little bit stressful. But after I got confident in this job, it became really fun. You might think it's a little bit simple, doing the same thing 30 times a day, just going and drawing people's blood, but it's actually quite a challenge. Nobody's body is the same. Nobody's veins are the same. I still have patients that I struggle to get their blood on, and that happens to me every single day. So I'm constantly challenged in this job, and I get to work with patients, which I really love, and every patient's different. Their fears are different, their concerns are different, and I get to be there for them in these really hard times of their life.
I love it. There's so much to unpack in that. I love it. First of all, you got a degree in biology because you knew it was somewhere in healthcare, but you weren't quite sure. And looking back, Nate, is there something you would have done now that you're a little older and wiser that maybe these young people could do to help start to narrow things down while they're in high school or during their college experience that maybe would have helped you figure it out? Or do you think it was just part of the journey and you just gained some experiences working with the organization that trafficked humans and that was just the way it was supposed to be?
Well, if I had known earlier that I wanted to go into laboratory science, I would have pursued a degree. You actually can get a degree in laboratory science. And laboratory science, basically, to give you an overview, it takes your specimens, your blood, your urine, your tissues, biopsies, it takes your poop, and it tests it. And the people in the lab, so I work in the hospital, but the people in the lab that process it, that put it on these machines, that analyze it, that take the lymph node you removed and slice it so that a doctor can look at it on a slide. Those people get a degree in laboratory science, and it's a huge growing field. I mean, if you think about it, every single COVID swab that has happened in this country in the last year was processed by a laboratory scientist. So I probably would have considered a degree more along that line. Biology is kind of general, so something like an applied health science or biomedical science, that might have been something I looked forward to.
Yeah, maybe it would have, like you said, it would have expedited it. But I think our journeys are so important. And for young people to hear that you didn't have it all figured out and that was okay. You still worked and you learned and you found your way. That's so important for young people to hear because there's a lot of pressure on them to have it all figured out. So you have such a great story to help them understand that it's not the way it has to go.
True. And the cool thing about phlebotomy is you don't have to have a college degree to start as a phlebotomist. And so most of the people that I work with are in college or students somewhere. And you just have to have a high school degree, and we train you here. Our schedule is really flexible. That's one of the things I love about this job is a lot of these students can build their schedule around their class schedule. So it's a great job to have if you're at all thinking about healthcare or laboratory science. It's a great job to have for the reasons I stated earlier, to have while you're in college.
So tell us about some of that training, because young people will definitely want to know some of those steps. Would they just apply on spectrumhealth.org and you do on-site training? If they get, I mean, is that how it works? You have to have any other prior experience, or if you've worked at McDonald's and stuff, you can get a job? Yeah,
you can. I mean, we try and pick people that show the qualities that you kind of need. Customer experience is actually a really important part of our job. I mean, if you think about it, nobody really wants to get your blood drawn. So being able to go in there and have a patient who might be afraid of needles and being able to comfort them and calm them and draw their blood and let them know that it's going to be okay and that it's not that painful. That's a really important quality. So we look for that. But as far as getting a job, yeah, you can just go to Spectrum Health and you can apply, and then you'll get interviewed. There's 2 interviews, and then yeah, you start with us. We the first week of your training is just in a classroom setting, learning all about blood components and different blood tests and all of the different equipment, the different needles we use, the electronics, the technology that we use. We actually do all of our work on an iPhone. And then the next few weeks, you're with trainers actually on the floors, drawing your own patients.
Great description. That really helped paint a picture for them. And I guess I want you to notice, young people, that he mentioned earlier too, you learn on the job. Someone's showing you, you don't do that class and then out you go. Now you're on your own. They walk alongside you, because a lot of young people have anxiety around like, well, how do I know what to do? And it's like, you will show them.
Yeah. So you'll feel totally comfortable by the end of your training being able to draw patients on your own. Usually you'll draw 250 patients during your training with a trainer right there by your side to help you out before you start drawing patients on your own.
That's so great. One of the students wants to know, would this be difficult for someone who maybe is a little queasy?
I've had experience with that, not personally, but I've trained a few phlebotomists that that don't necessarily like the sight of blood. And I did have one experience where I had a phlebotomist who passed out in one of the rooms because the draw didn't go very well. But in 5 years, I've only had that once. It's the only time I've heard of it. You know, the people that worked here for 30 years have never seen that before. And a lot of those people that are afraid of needles or whatnot, it's a different story when you're the one behind the needle, and you get used to it pretty fast. So it's really rare for that to be something that that really becomes a problem in this job.
Yeah, that's what I've heard for students who've asked nurses, for example, of that question, you know, the blood and guts part. And there's two answers usually. It's like, you just get used to it. It's
Yeah.
not a big deal. Or there's so many positions that you don't even see that blood and guts. It's kind of a, you know, so for you though, obviously that is part of it.
Yeah.
And so you said it took you a couple weeks to kind of get used to it. But now you're rolling. And it sounds like you really love the variety that you get to be all over the hospital, all the different.
I love it.
Yeah. So as far as some of that training, do they have fake arms to get you started in the training? Do you get to do it on real people? One of the students wants to know, do you actually work on real patients?
Yeah, so that first week we have a rubber arm. We call him Rubber Steve, and you do a number of draws on that. And then in that next week, you will draw some other phlebotomists down here in the lab where the pressure's not on, where you can kind of get used to it. And I'm one of those guinea pigs that usually everybody who's new starts. I have really good veins, so I'm an easy target. But then, yeah, on your second week, you go up and you start drawing patients on your own with a trainer with you.
I love that, guinea pig, Steve. The Steve is the arm, but you're guinea pig, Nathan. You mentioned that the Children's Hospital is one of your favorite areas. Tell us why.
Yeah. Boy, so if you think about it, drawing blood in the Children's Hospital, it's one of the more challenging things. You know, getting somebody's blood is just so important to being able to help them get better. So you have to do it. And I find that I am actually more valuable as a skilled phlebotomist in the Children's Hospital because, you know, you can draw an adult and, you know, if they're a difficult poke, we call it, if it's hard to get their blood, you might have to poke them 2 or 3 times, but they're an adult. It doesn't hurt that much. They're not that scared of it. They've had it done a number of times before. It's not as big of a deal. But if you have a 3-year-old that you have to draw their blood, a phlebotomist who's really skilled, that can get it on the first time, that can do it, you know, get it over really quickly, that saves that kid a lot of stress, and even sometimes trauma. If you have to poke a 3-year-old, you know, more than once over the course of an hour where they're really distressed, that can even have negative health outcomes. So I find that my skill is even more valuable there, and I just love kids. So I really like that. We do a lot of things over there differently. We actually have staff over there that are called child life specialists, and they actually have a master's degree in child life, and they go with us, and they are the voice, and they are trained to talk to children about medical procedures, and they explain exactly what's going to happen in a really kid-friendly way. They often have distraction toys with them. There are a number of things that we can apply that numb the skin so that they don't actually feel the poke. So yeah, it's my favorite place to draw. It's my favorite place to teach people to draw. And I think we just are really important over there.
Because what kind of surprised me when you said that you go, you know, to so many different departments. I guess I'm surprised that they don't have phlebotomists that only work in the Children's Hospital. Like that's where you would be all day. So tell me about why you move around so much.
So at a big hospital, so I work at Butterworth, Helen DeVos, and the Meyer Heart Center, the big hospital downtown. And we do have one central department, but on each day, on each shift, you'll be assigned to a different spot. So like right now there is one phlebotomist and the children's hospital is their responsibility. And there's two phlebotomists that the emergency department is their responsibility. And the next day you might switch. So after you've been in our department for about a year, you'll have been trained in all of the different departments. And I like it that way because it gives you variety. You're not doing the same department every day. I mean, working in the emergency room is really fast paced and high stress. Working in the general units, not so much. It is a lot of work. And then you're working in the children's hospital takes a different type of skill. And for some people that really love it, they might work in the children's hospital more. For some people who like working in the emergency department, we can let them work in the emergency department more. So it kind of gives that freedom.
So as we continue our conversation, I know that I would love for you to share maybe one of those experiences that when you went home, you're like, that was a good day. That was awesome to be a phlebotomist in that situation. And then also maybe one of the days when you went home, you're like, that was really hard. That was a hard day. Can you give us those experiences?
Yeah, I do. A good day. A good day is when I feel like I'm a valuable member of my team. So I might, you get into a rhythm, and sometimes you are good at, you're having a good day, you're good at drawing people's blood. You're able to go get the patients that maybe another phlebotomist failed with. I think another thing that makes a really good day is the type of interactions I've had with patients. I've had a number of patients that have really had an impact on me. And those are good days. A not so good day. Yeah, I had a tough one. I was in the children's hospital and we had a baby with a condition that people know it as brittle bone syndrome. So this baby was born with really weak bones, and it was really easy for that baby to have broken bones. I mean, the car seat that she sat in when she drove home from the hospital after being born broke some of her bones. And they needed her blood drawn. And there were a lot of difficult parts of drawing this baby's blood. Like normally we tie that rubber band, that tourniquet around your arm, because that kind of makes your veins show up better. And we couldn't tie a tourniquet on this baby because it could break her arm. We couldn't even fight the baby's movements. If the baby tried to pull away, if you resisted it too much, the baby could break its own arm. So that was really challenging. And I had somebody there helping me. And we were drawing some really obscure tests that we don't normally draw. And we were able to get blood, but we were only able to get a small amount. And we actually, on one of the tests, we put the blood into the wrong type of container. And we had to go draw that baby again. And that was a mistake that we made. There's a lot of details that you got to get right to not make these mistakes. And wasn't completely our fault. We had been told that container would work. And so that person was also mistaken, but it was heartbreaking nonetheless to have to walk into that room and tell this baby's parents that we have to do this all over again. So yeah, I left that day kind of sad.
And that does sound like a tough day, but it sounds like that's a pretty rare situation.
Absolutely.
That's good. Yeah. Most of it's real positive as far as, like you say, gives you to be the bright spot in someone's day and having that rapport with people and making them feel comfortable.
Yeah. No, most of my interactions 95% of my interaction with patients are great.
That's great.
I really enjoy that part.
Well, I think you have some students who are already a little interested. So one's wondering how what's the youngest you'll start to train someone? Do you have to be 18 before you even get hired?
You do. You have to be 18 before you can start working here.
Yep. And then just to clarify about the training, it's on the job. It's a couple weeks training as you start to get the skills to then go on the floor on your own. But that's all in-house. So no outside training is needed at a GRCC or anything. It's all in-house. Now I know there are some programs like the Kent Career Technical Center has a phlebotomy program as part of high school training. But that's not needed to get the job. It's just a wonderful asset to have on your resume.
It is. If you have prior phlebotomy experience, or if you have gone through a phlebotomy training program, that looks really good, and you'll have a better chance of getting a job here. But I had no healthcare experience before I started. I had never drawn anybody's blood. I'd never held a needle before. And I got a job here. And I'd say most of our staff don't have any previous phlebotomy experience. So those programs are great. And there are a lot that I can recommend. GRCC's program is really great, but it's not needed. We train you here. It takes about 6 weeks to get you trained.
And I assume there's some type of test you have to pass at the end that says you're ready? You take
there
some
is.
type of certification?
Yeah. There's a couple different tests along the way, but there's one at the end that's kind of basically the lead phlebotomist on the shift will go with you for the day and observe you, and you'll do every different type of draw. We do a lot of different type of draws. It could be, you've got to use every different type of needle. Some of them are as simple as, poking their finger. On infants, we'll poke their heel and actually get blood out of a little cut in their heel. There's different tests, like we do tests that have special requirements, like a blood culture that checks your blood for infection. And that has a lot of specific requirements in it. And then at the end of that day, you'll take a test. And if you pass all of that, you'll start drawing patients on your own. And if you don't, or you don't feel comfortable drawing on your own, we extend the training, and we have no problem doing that.
Because the training is kind of happening all through the year as you hire people. It's not like just in January they offer the training, or just in March. It's kind of rolling, as they call it, rolling testing.
Yeah, we get new employees almost every week.
So we only have just a few minutes left. So I'd like to, again, just help young people understand Nathan loves his job. It's his full-time job. But he mentioned that it's also a great job if you're going to school to go to a different healthcare position. Like if you want to be a nurse, this is a great job to really get the inside knowledge of a hospital, learn the lingo, learn the different roles. So keep that in mind. Is there anything else you'd like to say as far as some of that side of it? Nate, you said the schedule is really flexible. Any other plug for why kids should get into this?
Besides it being a really fun job, I can't stress that enough. I know it sounds crazy that somebody who goes and draws people's blood is fun, but it really is fun. And it is really flexible. And I've learned about every career in the hospital. I would say that having patient experience, a lot of programs, nursing programs, if you want to go beyond that, if you want to be a physician, or you want to be a physician's assistant or a nurse practitioner, you need patient care hours, and phlebotomy is a great way to get those. So get started right when you get into school, and you'll start building those patient care hours right away if you end up deciding you want to go into a career like that.
That's great. I'm going to transition us to a slide to help them understand a resource that they can get some of the nuts and bolts, like payroll, what a typical work week is like. I'm going to have you end, Nate, with a word of wisdom to these young people as they're exploring, so you can think about that.
Sure.
So let me share my screen again, everybody. And then I'll give you a really great resource that will help you if your interest is piqued. I love this resource. It's called ONET Online. It's ONET Online. So it's onetonline.org, and it's just a great career research site. So for example, I plugged in up in that upper right-hand corner where it says quick search, I put in the word phlebotomist. And as you can see, not only did phlebotomist come up as a hit, but also medical assistants. And then that medical and clinical laboratory techs, which he was mentioning earlier about the lab science. So again, you don't know what you don't know. So I love these tools because it can help broaden your idea of what's even out there. And some of these jobs have things in common. So when I clicked on phlebotomist, it takes you to a page that then has all sorts of great career information. So you'll see here that there's different titles for what a phlebotomist does at different hospitals. It might be called different things. And then all these categories. So you can learn about the wages, which someone wants to know about the payroll, typical work activities for the day, what kind of knowledge you have to have, some of those natural skills and abilities, you know, being interpersonal and having those customer service, that is a key part. So that'll be listed in here. This is just an example of the task, but this kind of site really helps you dig in to what it's all about. And so I wanted to encourage you to use ONET after every one of our career chats to kind of take it to the next level. Nate has been very kind to offer his email address for anyone that has questions, and maybe at the next level you're thinking, man, this might be something I'd really like. You know, he's open to that. So it's nathan.mcdonald@spectrumhealth.org. And again, that research is onetonline.org. And then again, my name is Krista Harmon at kentisd.org. And I can come back to that, but I wanted to give Nate a chance to, this is your final opportunity to give it a plug, and we know you love it, that's awesome, but really a word of wisdom as they're exploring.
Sure. Well, if I was thinking about what I would need to hear when I was in high school all those years ago, I think it's along the lines of what you said earlier, that you don't have to have it figured out. And it's a huge world out there, and there's so many different things you can do, and you're already a step ahead because you're in a program like this where you're learning about all these different jobs. I didn't know phlebotomy was a job that I could do when I was your age. We'd love to have you. Yeah.
It's an encouragement to them just to keep exploring, you know.
Yep.
Well, Nate, I want to thank you for making time today. I know that 30 minutes goes fast. I love learning people's stories and hearing about their jobs. And I love seeing people who are so happy in their jobs. That's a beautiful thing. So thank you so much. I'm going to just give a quick stop to the recording here.
Thanks for having me.